Welcome to the Core of Success podcast. Entrepreneurship, success, health, life, big things are in your future. And now, your hosts, Sean and Mike.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Core of Success podcast. This is episode 7.
Woo!
We are your hosts. I'm Sean.
I'm Mike.
And here we go.
Kevin.
We've got a, what?
You jumped in already.
Jump in already. Our guest jumped
We
in
got
already.
to introduce him. He's ready to go, folks. We got an incredible guest today, man. He's ready to go.
He is ready to go. And you're going to meet him in just a second. And if you're like us, you'll like him. He's good people, and he's got some interesting things to share with us today. But what we wanted to talk to you guys about is something that around the office here, around the Abs company, we have these things called Seanisms. And they're things that I say over and over and over again. It was just kind of something that I did. But then I was listening to a great podcast by our friend Ed Milet. And he made a great point. He said a lot of times leaders are trying to find that new, exciting thing to say. But success is in saying the old tried and true things over and over again. And I'm like, that's it to a T. Because when we find that thing that's working, you got to stick with it. So I am excited to introduce to you guys one of my Seanisms. And it is what I call FIO. And that stands for figure it out, which I believe is one of the greatest skills that a person can have today. Mike, what do you think about that?
Oh, 100%. You know, I think it too goes back to like with your Seanisms, the fundamentals that we talk about,
Correct.
Right? You get good at, like you say, you coach football, blocking and tackling, you know, that's the fundamentals. The Seanisms as far as figure it out, you know, there's so much information now, like at your fingertips, just to figure it out without having to waste other people's time, without having to waste your time. You can figure it out. But I think too, as we'll talk about in a bit, it takes a certain person to do that, a very certain culture as well that encourages that type of behavior, you know. So I want to talk about that a little bit, but it's super, super important because you have to be able to think on your feet, man. 2019, you got to be able to think on your feet really quick, figure things out without having to go to the boss or have to go to 10 other people, getting everybody involved. Man, you got to figure shit out, period.
Yeah, because you got to move, right? Things are moving fast. Everything's at your fingertips. But we'll talk about why that's so important.
Yep.
And we'll talk about some of the reasons why people don't do it. And I think this can really serve some of you folks that are listening. But to do that, we want to introduce you guys to somebody really special here at the Abs company. He's one of our newer employees, been around about a year or so. But he is just a fantastic person. I joke all the time. Someday we're all going to be working for this guy because he knows FIO. This guy can figure it out. So without further ado, let us introduce you to our good friend, Kevin Ramos.
Yeah.
Kevin, welcome to the Core of Success.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So Kev, tell everybody, what exactly do you do around here?
That's a good question. I feel like I do a little bit of everything, especially related to marketing. And I think, you know, my current title is like marketing representative, content development, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, anything that in the marketing world, I like to get my hands on: content development, social media, you know, key projects, asset management, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I like, my favorite stuff is the key projects, the stuff, you know, Sean or Mike, whoever will throw at me that maybe someone else doesn't know how to do. You know, just learning new things. It's a cool opportunity I'm in, you know, just, you know, getting here and just learning, just taking it as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And as we're going to talk about in a second, you know, you just alluded to it. You wear many hats here. Yeah, they're in the marketing genre, the marketing department, but you wear many hats. And that speaks to the very crux of FIO, right? Because it's impossible to know how to do all these things, but
Right.
you keep providing value to the business because you figure things out and because you learn new skills and you bring those to the table. So I think that is kind of the heart of what we're going to talk about here today. But before we get too far into that, why don't you tell everybody what you were doing kind of before you got here?
Yep.
Well, before the Avs company, it was really just, you know, just a normal college student, you know, taking classes at the University of Central Florida, go Knights, and, you know, just working regular college jobs, valet, you know, serving, just those kind of things while I was going through school. And I realized, you know, one day some of these restaurants and stuff, I was working at the hours, closing at 2:00 in the morning. By the time you get home, it's 3, class at 9, it's just taking a toll on my studies and just overall my quality of life. So one day I just said I was done with it. I had to focus. And for those of you who don't know, my mom also works at the Ebbs company. She's the director of marketing, and she came to me one day and was just kind of asking, if I think I could do some of these little tasks that just filling up her day-to-day time. And I gave it a shot, and I think I did an all right job at them. And then one thing led to another, and now I'm here full time, and it's just been the greatest experience, especially like as a first real job. I couldn't be happier.
Well, this isn't a real job. Working with Mike and I, that's for sure.
I just remember real quick too, Kev, you don't give yourself enough credit there. I just remember, and Kev, as you said, was coming on just as a helping out, hey, who can we get to do some of these cool videos and projects? And I just remember, Sean, right, when we gave something to Cindy, Kevin's mother, who's also fantastic, she's incredible, right? We get something to Cindy and she'd give it to Kevin, and like we got it back like right away. And let me tell you, it wasn't crap. Like it wasn't something. It was like fantastic. It was as good as like any professional we've ever hired. So we're like, damn, this guy's got something, right? Now, first your mom, I think, took a lot of credit, and then we kind of found out it was you doing it. Only kidding. She always said, "Oh, my boy, Kevin." But I just remember that about you, Kev, because we didn't see that before. There was always like Sean and I would get stuff back, and it would be like half baked. It would be okay, and we'd have to go back 10 times.
Right.
We'd use something, dude, and it was like it came back, and Sean were like, "Shit, that's incredible! It's perfect. Let's roll. Let's do it." And it's like,
I don't think my voice got that high when I said it. I get your point, but I think you bring up an interesting point there, Mike. Is that Kev said something that's really interesting, and you kind of tacked on. It brings two things to mind. Number one, Kevin, when you're a college student, like all of us, right? You're doing some college type jobs, serving, valeting, all that stuff. But something that I want more, right? There's more in me. I can do more. And that's a big realization for people, because that, as Mike and I have talked about on other episodes, that's a risk, right? You're kind of in there, you're making a few bucks, you're getting by. You're like, nah, you know what? There's more for me. So I commend you on that, taking that risk. But the other thing, and Mike's alluding to it, is that your work was so good, but being a guy who's serving in a restaurant, being a guy who's taking college courses, being a guy that's valet parking cars, you weren't making videos, you weren't doing graphics work, you weren't doing
right.
outside of your own dating profiles. You were returning this work to us that was professional caliber. So like, where did that come from? How did you start to get these skills at such a level right from jump?
I honestly don't know. It's funny, I was going to talk about it a little later, but no one in my family is artistic except for my brother. My mom, my dad, nobody knew how to draw or, anything like that. Now my brother does, that's his thing. But like for me, I don't know. I think one day I logged on, I was doing the social media and whatnot. And I looked up, free graphic design programs. I Googled it, free graphic design tools, and I found Canva. And I think that just started it all. I learned the ins and outs of that, realized, what you could really do with such a simple tool. And I think, starting from there, that's just where it all started, with the graphic design. And then same with the video editing. I looked up a free video editing software, and I found one. We don't use it anymore. We've upgraded nowadays, but and I just started learning with what I didn't have kind of money to spend on these crazy programs that we have now. But I just made do with what I could find online, and just kind of scaled it out from there.
Yeah. I mean, you seem to have within you, though, what I like to call a spirit of excellence. And that is, you wouldn't give us work that you didn't feel was excellent. And that's kind of what Mike was saying before. We would get it back sometimes from quote unquote professionals. We're like, whoa. And you got your stuff, and it was there. It was like, okay, this is my best work, which is something else we talk about here all the time. It's one of our standards. You got to give your best work. So as you were going through that learning process, did you have a lot of redos before you showed it to us, or were you picking up on it pretty quickly?
Yeah, like if you go into Canva and you open like one graphic, right? You kind of you'll see a preview on the home screen, but you click that one graphic, there's probably 7 or 8 different slides, all with something a little bit different, a little revision here, different colors here, and that's exactly right. When you guys tasked me with this stuff, I took it as I can't half-ass it. If they're going to trust me with this kind of stuff, that's just how, I like things to be perfect, just all around. So I think that just translates to work too.
Yeah. I mean, I think just to recap where we are so far, you have this drive within you to want something more. You have this ability to figure things out, and you have a spirit of excellence. Those are key markers of very successful people. And you're only what are you, 24, 25 years old?
Yep.
Yeah. And to have that already is still, I know it comes from your upbringing, your background and all that too, but that can't take all the credit. It's something in you that's driving you here and producing the work that you're doing. So,
if I could just jump in for a minute, it's a great, it's such an incredible lesson for anybody that's coming up, doing something, Kevin, like in your case, right? Because you're putting your best work out there, not even thinking at the time, I don't believe, or maybe you did, but where this would lead to a career for you, and,
Right.
And oftentimes tell people, like, wherever you are, people are watching. It goes back to a real quick example, guys. This won't be a long story, but I used to, as Sean, we talked about last week, work for the Department of Corrections. And this guy got out of prison, and he was working at Burger King. So some people are like, oh, the Burger King. But he was happy to be there. He was enthusiastic. He greeted customers. And somebody noticed that and said, hey, man, we're looking to hire somebody over here, da-da-da. They brought him over there. And then he was a bellman. So then he was a bellman. He had that same enthusiasm, that same drive. He greeted people, shook their hand, looked them in the eye. And then someone else noticed that and said, hey, I got a job for you in the city. And he just kept doing that. So you never know who's watching, like, especially when you're presented that work. Like, if you just would have half-assed it, we may not be all three of us sitting here right now.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's a really good point, great lesson, and commend to you and your mom for that, for sure, your family.
Yeah, they definitely had a part to play in it. My mom, she's a hard worker. I know she's a psycho. Like, I'll be back in my apartment. It'll be 9 or 10 o'clock. She texts me something about work. I'm like, you're still, what is going on? And same with my dad. He was in the Marines, and he's been a security technician for over 20 years. So he's just handyman. And like I said, it does have a lot to do with your upbringing too. And yeah, you gotta be aware. People are looking all the time, and that's just not in person too. All these social media channels, all this, everything, people are watching. So you never know when someone's gonna pick up on something or realize your potential.
Yeah, someone is always watching. To that point, someone is always watching your work. And what Mike's talking about with the fella coming out of prison, it's a guy who has probably had a grateful spirit to have that job. And just that spirit of excellence, and he kept moving forward. And there's always a place for good people, because that's one of the hardest things in any business, is to find people that, the skills you can teach to a certain extent, but having that something more in you, that's intangible, right? So having that's why this fella coming out of the DOC is going to do great things. That's why you're on track to do great things already, because it's innate. But on the concept of FIO, right? Figure it out. So how would you define it? What does that mean to you?
To me, I think figure it out, to me, depending on the situation, I think it just really means taking like the task or the situation or something you've presented with, and taking your own hands, to make sure it gets done right the first time, or even if it's the second time, not relying on someone else to do something that you're going to put your name on. And gaining the knowledge of the subject at the same time, so you could use it again in the future. Especially today, with Fiverr and stuff like that. Yeah, you can get anything done, online or whatever. Even Amazon, you get expert assembly on things you order and whatnot. But why not just equip yourself with skills and stuff that you can carry with you for the rest of your time. I just think that's where it comes down to.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just say too, again, goes back to a lot of it's a culture, right? So you're not afraid to take those risks. You're not afraid to do that. You're not afraid to go after and really dig deep and find that out, and that's the culture. We encourage that here. I think that's what every company should really be doing, is encouraging the folks. Don't stifle or handcuff your employees. Really encourage them, man. Let them dig deep into something. It goes back again to the training and whatnot, but really important that you give them, like that confidence, right? It's about that confidence. So, yeah, I can figure this out. I'm going to figure it out. Really important for sure.
So let me ask both of you guys this, because it's a great point. So get both of your takes on this. So why don't more people do this? Why don't more people embrace this FIO mentality?
I think one of the big things is I think a lot of times people just feel it's not possible, right? Let's say you see a cool, video on YouTube and like, damn, I wish I could make something like that. But, this guy's probably been doing it for a few years, or, he's got better equipment, or, one thing or another. And they just, before they can even start, they take themselves out of the game. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think also people are just looking for like the easy way out on how to get some of these things done, whether it be in business or with their personal life. A lot of people just don't want to, grind things out and, do the hard work to get something done.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The first one is big. What you're referencing there is people just don't have a belief in themselves, and wherever that comes from, that could be part of an upbringing too, or how you were just think about yourself. But, your performance in life, as people have said before, your performance in life will never exceed your own identity. So it's whatever you believe about yourself, that's what you're going to get to. And generally a little bit lower than that, to be honest with you. So you're absolutely right. People are like, oh, I couldn't do that. That's not for me. Well, then you're right. You're right. You'll never do it because you don't take the time to figure it out. But the second thing that you're referencing there is a little bit of laziness, right? It's easier to ask somebody, oh, let's jump on a call. Let me do this with you. No, well, come to me with your solutions. And that's why I believe it's such a great leadership principle too. That you have to push back on your people, because if you become their crutch in there, then you're never going to get anywhere as a business, because as a leader, you're tasked with not only growing your team, but in running the business. So if you pick up every little scrap, every little piece for your team because they won't FIO or figure it out, you're not going to get very far in there. So I think it's a huge leadership principle that anybody out there who's in a leadership role should really start to embrace. Push back on your people. And sometimes I think people are scared from a leadership perspective to say FIO because it's, oh, I can't say that. That's insensitive, or they don't think I'm here for them. It's like, no, that's not what we're saying. Saying, don't just come to me with your problems. Come to me with one or two solutions for the problem, which showed you at least tried to figure it out. And then if that's not the right solution, then okay, let's work it out. But I think
that's a great point. And then also along with that, like you do, Sean, as a CEO, you encourage all of us to FIO, right? Figure it out. Like you said, come with a solution. And, once you do that a couple of times, once you do figure it out, you get the confidence, you get those wins, so to speak. So then that just snowballs and accumulates, right? So then oh, okay, I can figure it out. Because how many times you heard people, oh, I'm not good at this or I'm not good at that, and they figure it out, oh, okay, I could do it. So when you have that, like if you're solving everyone's problems all the time, of course you're just going to push it off to you. Yeah, here you go. Here, do that or do that. But they know, but you push back. You say, no, man, come to me with a solution. Come to me with your ideas. Give me 3 ideas. Let's go. And I think that really builds that certainty, builds that confidence, and then that just, propels them to continue to FIO, figure it out.
It's a great point. As we like to say, you start stacking those wins, right? You don't task somebody on their first day with, the most complicated, complex task in the business, but you give them something, get that win. And then when they say, oh, I don't know how to do that, whether they're saying it to themselves or out loud, you push back that FIO, and then, oh, like you said, Mike, I got that one. Then now let's start to build for bigger and bigger tasks. I mean, think about your time here, Kev. In the beginning, we would just have you knock out the background on photos, right? Say, hey, this photo is on in a factory floor. Can you make it on a white background? Cool, and you did it. But now you're making videos that we're showing all over the world. So I think you started stacking those wins by figuring it out, and it really grew your confidence in your ability to perform.
Definitely. And exactly too, you never know. So some little tasks that you might, figure out in this area apply to another area. And just like you said, between, knocking, where it might have started with knocking the background out of a picture. Well, now I can use that in slides. Now these slides go into videos. It all compounds. So it is really stacking the small wins, into a bigger thing.
Absolutely. So let's talk about work ethic for a second, because I think these two things are very closely related. And again, that's just my personal opinion on the matter. But how do you feel that figuring things out ties together with work ethic?
I think when you take the time to figure things out, right? I think you start realizing you could do these things. I think you end up working harder and you hold yourself accountable, and you start to realize, no matter what's thrown at you, that someone's done it. If someone else has done it, you could figure it out too. And it gets to the point now, I'll find something interesting and I'll stop what I'm doing and dive into something, and it's 2-3 hours later. But, you taking the time to, figure things out and and really, figure out how you can use it in your everyday life and use it going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think it all comes back to, again, presenting your best work all the time. Is this your best work when you're presenting a proposal, when you're doing a presentation? Is this your best work? Talk about, figuring out, but what are you handing in? Again, it goes back to when you just hand some crap in or, some shit in, what's the CO? Like, you push back. You're like, look, man, like, that's not good enough. Like, come to me, with a real solution, with something real. So yeah, I think that's huge as far as the work ethic, because you're in it, you're committed to find a solution. You're not going to give up. You're committed to find it, no matter how, no matter what. And obviously there's resources and people you can ask when you get to that point, but you're committed to find the solution. So yeah, big time.
I agree with you guys. And I think that the key thing there is staying accountable, right?
Yeah.
So you are accountable. Our standard here is your best work. So before you're going to speak to anybody on the team with any task that you've been given, is that your best work? It's a great check, right? Because could I have done a little bit more? And yeah, there's always something else you could do. But is this my best work at this moment? Yes. Okay, great. And if that met standard, then awesome, go with that. But you have to be careful too sometimes when you are figuring it out, that you can get stuck in these rabbit holes, right? You can go on and I can tweak this and learn that and do all that stuff. But now you missed the agreed upon date of completion on something, or you missed the expected result from you. Right. So that's where I think it's really important to remember that the results still matter, which is something we talk about here all the time. We believe hard work pays off and produces results that matter. And the other thing is resources. And Mike, you alluded to that. When you are figuring something out, there's nothing wrong with using an outside resource to get a little piece of it done, or to speak to someone who's already done it and say, okay, just to springboard me a little bit forward. So you're still figuring it out. But sometimes people, one of the things we talk about here as a business, we talk about think, plan, execute. A lot of times people really get stuck in the thinking and planning, and they never execute. So I think there's a balance here between figuring things out and yet staying accountable to the results that you've been tasked with achieving.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, that was good. That one kind of crashed. But okay, cool. Let's keep going. So why do you personally, Kev, strive for constant improvement? What is it about you? Like, that's one of our core values here. We believe in constant improvement, both business and personal. So why is that important to you, other than it being a core value of ours?
Right. I think it's honestly the sense of accomplishment you get, when you learn how to do something, and especially when it benefits, someone else on the team. Like when I send something to you and you send it to the team and it ends up working out, or, they get a customer who they haven't talked to in months, and then they say, oh, this something you did, it worked, it sparked conversation or something. That's like the biggest win for me. That's what drives me to improve, is when I see the things that I've learned and created, when they pay off, not only for me, but for someone else. And then also just comparing, where I started back a year or two ago, however long it's been. And I look at my work then, and now I look at my work now, and I see I'm embarrassed of the old work in a way, but like, it's cool to see, how much better things have gone in the improvement that I've gotten to,
Yeah, I think it goes back to, with progressing. Any time in life when you're progressing, no matter where you are, if you're moving forward, you're making strides, you're learning. I think no matter where you are, you could be at the very bottom, but as long as you're improving, you're getting better, you just feel better. And again, that builds that confidence that you can do more and do more. So yeah, man, I think that's something too. Again, it comes back to constant improvement, always trying to do better, learning like every day, like we do training. It's so important. You got to improve every single day, for sure.
Yeah, like the world's not stopping. So but I think it's interesting what you said too, Kevin, about how, you see the effect that your work is having on other team members here and the results of the company. One of the things that we talk about here a lot is our TAC continuum, how every department is really interrelated here. And we'll do an episode on that. But I think it's very interesting, because in your work in the marketing world, there's a little bit of subjectivity to it, right? Sales is kind of black and white. You're hitting numbers or you're not hitting numbers. And definitely in marketing, there's some objectivity too. Are we getting leads from this? Are these ads working? So on. But when it comes to some of the videos, there is some subjectivity to it. So when you're looking at it, you say, wow, this was great, or I can improve in this area or not. But I can imagine the sense of accomplishment you get when one of the sales reps calls up and say, hey, when you sent out that video, here's what these people said about it, and so on and so forth. And that feedback spurs you to keep improving. So I gather it's a unique aspect of a marketing role that if you're not in marketing, you don't always understand.
Yeah, I always send Kev a text, or, we'll talk, us three will talk about it. Like, cause you never know sometimes what's going to hit, right, Kev? And something hits out there and it really resonates with our customers and with our friends, our support. We talk about it all the time, we change lives from the core. We get a video out there, we get something out there, and it's like, yeah, man, people now are moved to exercise. They're moved to start working out and getting to a health club or getting to a gym and doing something, and they see that, it gets them excited. And that's, I love that part of it. So
and even more,
hey man, that video was awesome. Boom, it resonated. Not just what I think about it, but you said, what's the response from when we put it out there?
Right. And even on a more granular level, it's like now with these social media, you could see, how many engagements a post got, how many views it got. So constantly improving your content, even if you can put the same thing out, but if you twist it another way, you post it at a different time of the day, or, there's so many little things you can do to improve just your daily tasks that you're doing at work. And just, that's another thing that drives me. You see, oh, well, this worked better, so let's do it every day,
Yeah, I think that's something unique about the world we're in today, where you can get that instant feedback, on this. And you see, like I do it, we talk about LinkedIn all the time, where the expectation is here that everybody posts every day. And I watch what happens on the various posts I make. And sometimes you make one that you think is awesome, and like you get crickets on it. And then you get another one, and like, people loved it. And kind of gives you direction on how to go. And you keep honing that craft, if you will, of how to spread the message and tell the story. But I'm sure there's a course on how to make a video, or there's a course on when and how to post on Instagram. That information is there, but we as a company believe, let's figure that out. And I believe one of the best ways of figuring a lot of things out is just by simply doing them, right? And like you said, watching that feedback on social, say, okay, well, that worked or it didn't work. That's all part of figuring it out. That's the accountability and the results that we spoke about.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it all comes back to too, also, if you're not constantly improving, the guy next to you, whether it be at your job or some other company that might be fighting for a position for you one day, someone's improving. Everyone's improving. Everyone's trying to find that ticket, that perfect, hone everything in. So you got to be constantly improving.
We talk about like complacency kills, right? Mm-hmm. Anytime you get complacent, anytime you say, oh, it's okay, it's just, oh yeah, it's not your best work. Yeah, somebody could be eating your lunch, man, for sure.
Yeah.
The customers are fickle, right? Even all of us as consumers. There are certain brands we're very loyal to, but many that we're not, right? And when the next new shiny thing comes about, they're gone, right? So I think it's critical that we are continuing to figure out how to get that message across to people. And that's what you and the marketing team are really skilled at, which is great. But this concept of figuring things out requires obviously an aspect of learning. So were you always a learner? Were you a kid that like loved to go to school, or were you like a self-learner, or how does that fit into who you are?
I wasn't one of those kids that could walk in, read something once, take the test on it, and, don't have to study. I had to study a little bit, but, I did kind of like the learning aspect, of certain subjects, obviously. I mean, some of them, I didn't become a doctor for a reason, but, when it came to school, I did like the learning aspect. And I think also the feeling of accomplishment of, the grades and stuff helps too. But yeah, absolutely. And it translates now, when I learn these different programs and stuff, I just think it's so cool to see what people are doing, in these different parts of the marketing world. And, it inspires me to learn more.
That's great. I was always I still am. I'm a lifelong learner. Right? I love learning. I always loved school when I was a kid. Mike, we talked about how we were college roommates. Mike can attest. I loved college. I loved the classes. I loved all that stuff. Because of this sense of constant improvement. It's just something in me. I have to know more. I keep going, but that's not in everybody. And I think that's something that can hold people back from, FIO, because as Mike said, complacency, right? People get, oh, this is good enough. I'm good enough with these skills. But, the reality is you're just not. And the world is just moving so much faster nowadays that the skills, even that you learn today, are obsolete tomorrow. Social media changes one algorithm on there. Things go up in smoke, right? They're constantly adding new features that allow you to get your message out there, but they're not calling you. I don't think Zucks ever calls you, Kev, and says, hey, I got a new feature. You got to be out there learning it, figuring it out. And I think it's critical. So if you don't have that love of learning in your craft, especially, I think you're in for troubled waters.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, I'll take it a step on the sales side. We talk to a lot of folks that have been very successful in sales. We're always looking to, bring A players onto our team. We're, growing aggressive company. But you talk to some guys, sometimes I've been in the game for a little bit and they're like, well, this is how we always did it, or this is how I always did it, and this is the way right now. And it's like, no, man, like you can see it where they got complacent, right? And maybe that's why their numbers have dropped, or maybe they're just comfortable, so to speak, where they are, but they don't have that hunger. They don't have that drive, and something needs to ignite that again. But yeah, if you're not, no matter how successful you are presently, if you're not constantly learning, the next guy is, like Kevin said, the next guy's training, the next guy's up later than you. He's up earlier than you. He's talking to more customers. It's really critical, man. You got to have that hunger.
So let's dig into something perhaps a little bit controversial, but it's something it's out there, right? And that's this concept of the millennial generation, because you are a millennial, Kev. Mike and I are not. We have far surpassed that. A little bit older than you.
No,
but
emotionally, maybe, yes.
What's that?
Emotionally, maybe, yes.
Oh, yeah, emotionally now. We're even beyond that. We're like preschoolers intellectually. But but when it comes to this idea, people say millennials are lazy. Millennials are entitled, as a generation. What would you say to that? Because you don't seem to exhibit any of those qualities to me.
Yeah, I think it comes down to a few things, but one thing I've noticed, and trust me, I don't think I'm perfect or I'm not a part of this, but I think one of the big things now is instant gratification. I feel like people my age, we want the best thing, we want it now, we want it the easiest way. And, it's just, that's not how things are done in the real world. You might see some of these influencers or whatever on social media and you think, oh, wow, they're only 20 something. Look what they have. Look what, everyone wants that. Or, look at, I'm on YouTube all the time and these ads that pop up, it's these self-proclaimed gurus saying, here's one of my students. He went from $0 to 500,000 in 1 month. And, he's going to sell you some package to do that. That's what I feel like people my age are looking for. And I don't think it works like that. But on the flip side, I have some of that in me too. When I want something, whether it be a camera, whatever, I want the best thing, because why not? Why get something, not exactly what you want and then regret it, the next week. But, you got to kind of use that, and the FIO to fuel you to get what you want, but, the right way, working hard and whatnot. But I think instant gratification has a big part to play in it with people my age.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's a great point you make with the social media and on the ads, because we all see those things too. And, as someone who's been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, I can tell you nothing happens overnight, and it's just not true. So if you're seeing that, if you're thinking about clicking on one of those, just run, man. Because imagine we put up an ad. Maybe we should do this. We should put up an ad and tell you about the 20-year journey to get some of these things that people really want, because that'll scare a lot of people away. But I think it really all speaks back to that work ethic. But you're right. When you're using the FIO principle and you're figuring things out, there's nothing wrong with wanting the best. We should all want the best, right? Good for you. That's something about a camera, computer, car, whatever. You want the best, go get it. But how do you get it? You get it by figuring it out, by continuing to improve, by having that work ethic and getting the results, because that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day when it comes to our work. Are we getting the results that we want? And if that affords you certain luxuries, good for you.
Yeah, if you're coming out of school, or if you're not prepared, like Kevin, you were very well prepared, I think, to really jump into this world. We'll talk about how we talked you out of college in a moment. You're still going to school, I understand that, but that's a really good story on the risk that you took too, right? To join us. But yeah, if you're not ready for that, man, like if you think you're entitled, when you get into the quote unquote real world, I hope I don't sound like an old guy when it says, man, you're going to get your ass handed to you, because the other people out here are playing for keeps, man. They're not kidding around. When business comes, it's about, it's down to the business. It's not about the other bullshit. And, if you don't have that work ethic and you think, oh, well, they're just going to give me stuff or they'll figure it out for me, you're going to find yourself really skinny, right? You're not good. You're going to find yourself unemployed, very skinny, and not very happy and wondering what the hell happened. So I think that's something we folks really got to learn, because when you get out here, like as an entrepreneur especially, Like Sean and I talk about it all the time. These guys, they see all the glitz and glamour. They don't see, because that's what people portray on Instagram, right? All the things, all the awesome stuff they're doing. They don't show you all the other stuff they're doing behind the scenes when they're grinding out, 20 hours a day. No one sees.
And one of the scary things is too, I've seen some of these ads where it's like, this is, Kevin, he dropped out of school or he quit his job to do this, and that in a month or 2 months. Like, I don't know how, you could be portraying that kind of message. And really, if you were able to help someone go from 0 to 500,000 a month, why are you selling a course? Why aren't you doing this yourself? It's just all, I see right through it nowadays. It's just crazy.
Yeah, there's two aspects. That one is the people that are just full of shit putting it out there, and the other folks who may have legitimately made it in there, but they're generally showing you the after. As I always say, don't just see the after. That's easy. See what really goes into it, because if you don't have this skill of figuring things out in a 2019 world, A, it's inexcusable, but B, you are not going to make it. And that's just the reality. It's just the way that it goes. But it actually is a good story of how you got to us, Kev, because it's, it speaks to some of these things about taking a risk and trying to learn, taking these skills that you had and seeing an area that you can enhance them. So Mike, why don't you tell them this glorious story of how Kevin came to be a full-time abs company employee?
Sean and I had this grand planned, well, first we had to run it by Kevin's mom, Cindy, who we love and is our director of marketing, that, Kevin's in school and we obviously encourage that, but we want him right now. Like, we want this guy on our team. Like, again, we want varsity players, man. And we just saw so much in you, Kevin. It's like, first we had to run it by mom, of course, and get her blessing. And she was sort of okay with it. And then Sean and I say, hey, we're just going to come down, and Kevin's a man. And yeah, we just went down. And look, the story is obviously, or we all know, but for those that don't, is Kevin was in school and he's doing well. But we saw, again, like I talked about last week, to kind of be all in. We didn't want him to be just part-time, right? Like, just when I left the DOC to join up with Sean and the abs company, like, you got to kind of be all in. And we came down and presented that to Kevin, man, and he showed some real balls, because he's like, look, yeah, I want to do this. Like, and a lot of this stuff you had really never even done before. We're like, you know what? I'll be able to figure it out. I know I'm going to be successful. And we're obviously encouraging him to continue to get that degree. It's important. But we're like, man, right now is the opportunity. Do you want it? And you were like, you tell them the rest. You were like, hell yeah, right?
100%. And, I think in today's world with school and stuff, everyone's getting the piece of paper, right? The degree, but it's some of these internships and some of these opportunities, you have to bite at it. Because if someone comes out of school and they got an internship, or, they did something here or there, and the other guy, he's got the same exact thing, but just a piece of paper, the guy with the experience is going to win. So, I didn't even think twice when I heard the proposal, and I haven't looked back. But yeah, we got to finish 100%.
Yeah, you got to finish that degree. That was part of our deal with Cindy.
Yes.
We made that right there at the Maggiano's on I Drive in Orlando. I remember.
That's right.
We were sitting around that table like a couple of gangsters. And we made that deal.
Made him a deal he couldn't refuse.
That's right. Yeah, we gave him the old, this is the deal.
Right.
Your mom's biggest concern, obviously, was not whether or not you were going to be successful, it was whether or not hanging around Mike and I was going to corrupt you. I don't know really what to take of that, but that was the big concern. So far, so good. We've corrupted you maybe a little bit, but we're still on track to make sure you finish school and get some great experience here. So I think we're doing okay.
I think so.
Yeah. So let's start to wind this thing down here. Give us a couple tips for people who may be struggling in this area of trying to figure things out. What would you suggest to them to take the next steps and be able to enhance this skill in themselves?
I think the biggest thing is just try, just try it, because you never know where it's going to lead you, what you can present in the future, where it can take you. I have a little story. I don't think either of you heard this one, but I used to play video games, all through elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever. And I don't know if it was just because I'm getting older, my eyes getting worse, but I started getting real nauseous while playing, and my eyes would hurt. And I've heard of these these blue light glasses, these computer glasses that you're supposed to wear while you either work or play games and stuff. But all the ones that I saw online and stuff, they weren't how I wanted them. Didn't have the right frame, not the right lens, whatever. So I actually went on, Alibaba and I contacted about a dozen manufacturers in China, and I just got the ones I wanted made. This is before, this is a couple of years ago. And it's like, you never know what could happen. I had to lie. I said I was going to order 1,000 of them later. He gave me a good deal, but I got 5 samples and I gave them out to a few of my friends, and we use them every day. And you never know. We just learn how to do something. You never know what can happen, where it can take you, or how it'll compound in the future.
Shit, that's another idea for us right there. Abs.
Gaming glasses.
Yeah.
So just try. And I agree. You can't be afraid to fail. It's one of our core values here too. We're not afraid. We believe in taking risks to innovate because we're not afraid to fail. If you're afraid to fail, you're sunk already, because we all fail regularly. Give us one more, Kev.
I think it also, when, just go in it at 100%. Let's say you're going to try and pick something up, you got to go all in. Don't just, you go through, you install the program, you try for 15 minutes. It's kind of hard. Well, of course it's going to be hard. If it's going to produce something, that's good or that matters, it's not going to be for everybody, or, it's not going to be a 1-day thing or a 1-week thing. It might take you a month to learn something, but you got to look forward and know how it's going to pay off in the future. So definitely, just go at something 100% if you're going to dive into a new task, something like that.
I like that thing. I like what you're saying there about going after it 100%, because so many people don't, I think, and that kind of makes your day drag on too. Like if you're not into it, like when I make a call, every call you make, every time you speak to someone, be all in, be engaged, be 100%. If not, what's the point, and it's the same thing like you said, Kev, when you're going after a task or trying to complete something. If you do it half-ass, it's not going to be as much fun. Obviously, the work's going to suck for the most part, right? But if you go all in, man, you have that satisfaction, like, yeah, I did it, it's good. And it makes it a hell of a lot more enjoyable, too. So I like 100%. That point. It's good.
Great tips. Just try. Don't be afraid to fail. Go all in and figure it out. You can do that on the path to success. So, Kev, just to wrap this up, where do we go from here? What's the dream for you? What do you want to do when you grow up?
That's a good question.
Keep that in mind. We've never grown up, and we're doing it. But when you grow up, what do you want to do?
That's a good question. I'm still young. I don't even know if I know 100% what I want to do in the future. Just back to like my family roots and stuff. Most of my family lives in California, and we go camping all the time up in the redwoods and whatnot. So, I think, traveling across the country, maybe the world eventually is a long-term goal, maybe some badass RV or something like that. But, I'm just playing it by ear right now. I'm grateful for this opportunity, and, I think I'll figure out everything, along the ride.
There's those words again. He's figuring it out. And I think that's a great mentality and a great lesson for folks in your generation. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You do. You figure it out. You get that experience. As for that RV thing we're in, as long as you put the Abs Company logo on the side, drive across the country, we're all for it. So there you have it, folks. A great words of wisdom from a true up-and-coming professional, someone that, even though he's about 20 years my junior, I have tremendous respect for. Like I always say, we'll be working for this kid someday, because I believe that the future is extremely bright for him. And he is at the root and at the core of success. So just remember, everybody, we appreciate you being here. We'll see you on the next one. The core of success is you.
Big thing.